ANCAP in Australia has just tested Kia's brand new Ute, the one that was designed specifically for Australian roads and didn't get 5 stars. But here's the shocking thing. 2 Chinese Utes did. LDV and GWM officially have Utes on sale in Australia. ANCAP says that they are safer than the Kia Tasman. Let's jump into it. Also, just so you know, I ran a really funny poll recently. I did not expect this. I just had an inkling it might go a little bit this way, if I'm honest. But I asked you, out of 4 options, how good looking is the new Kia Tasman? 4 being beautiful and 1 being awful. I can only give you 4 options out of 5. 4 options to choose from, not 5 here. So 4 being beautiful, 1 being ugly and awful. And actually 53% of you said, what do you think? What do you think? Awful. It was awful, basically. And then 20%, 21% said 2, 16 said 3, and then 10% of you said 4. So it means 10%, 1 in 10 of you think it's a beautiful vehicle. And I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Hello, folks. Ben Alexxander here. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate your time. A really big shout out to all of these awesome people here, members of the channel on Patreon and YouTube members as well. They help me keep the channel going. Seriously, thank you very much. It really touches me that you like my work so much. You actually you take part in it, really. So that's nice. Let's take a look at what happened with the Tasman and why it's got people scratching their heads. This is Kia's big new push into the Ute market, the Tasman. And Kias are really great. This is an interesting thing, isn't it? 10 or 15 years ago, I think Hyundai and Kia, people had a big question mark above them. Are they any good? What are they? But actually, through driving them, the ergonomics usually really great, really, really great. They drive really, really well, and reliability has been pretty decent actually. Not necessarily Toyota decent, but just really decent. And I think that's why people like them more these days. It's just my opinion, but I think that's why people like them more. And so when they move into the electric vehicle world, like with the Insta and the Kia Tasman, for example, people want them to be great, but so far we've seen a few issues and a bit of overpricedness going on. So yeah, they're built tough for Aussie roads, Aussie conditions, not just the roads, but the conditions as well. Designed to take on the Hilux and the Ranger as well. But when ANCAP released their safety scores this week or last week, Kia's newest Ute only earned 4 stars. That's not bad, by the way. I mean, a few years ago, that 4 stars would have been a 5-star. Now it's a 4-star. So, for what it's worth, I know for a fact that a lot of people in the comments say that we should kind of just disregard ANCAP and Euro NCAP because this is just what I've read, but they're apparently a bit power hungry. And, when a car that would have gotten 5 stars 5 years ago is only getting a 3 stars now, should we be bothered? It's obviously time relative and technology's moving on and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it seems like there's potentially mission creep going on with NCAP, ANCAP, Euro NCAP, NCAP, that sort of thing. God, I can't speak. That's not terrible, 4 stars, 3 stars. I would actually buy a car that I wanted. I'd buy a Dolphin if it had a 3-star, 2-star rating. I just would. I'm fine with that. And I don't know if everyone shares that opinion. I don't know. So I definitely don't think that everyone should do that. That's just what I would do. It matters, though, I think, when cars get a bad rating, or not a perfect rating because they're it's competitive. So in a competitive world, if you have something that's scored with a smaller number, it's a bit crap for you, basically. It doesn't mean it's a rubbish car and it's not safe. That's not at all what it means, I don't think. It scored 84% for adult occupant protection, which is quite good, actually, but it only managed 76% for child protection and 72% for vulnerable road user protection, and that's pedestrians and cyclists. But obviously, in Australia, as we know, it's entirely legal to buy a massive car like this, or a Honda Jazz, a little car, or a Dolphin, and then stick a massive frame on the front made of solid steel bars. That's entirely legal, and then you can drive it in a densely populated area every day, So I don't really get why we're so fussed about this, but whatever. These numbers dragged the whole rating down because they were, when you put them all in a cocktail, the cocktail apparently gets you a less good result. Meanwhile, the LDV T60 Max, that got 5 stars. The GWM Cannon, the magnificent GWM Cannon, that also got 5 stars. So the perception that Chinese Utes are unsafe and they're going to fall apart and they're rubbish, and the people in the factories making them might not be bothered to turn up the amps on the spot welder and stuff and just not galvanize anything. That we all know that's rubbish now. Even people on the internet who you may have seen who formerly didn't like Chinese cars now, seemingly like Chinese cars, and for all sorts of reasons I can imagine. At least according to the data from Australia's official crash testing body, it's now flat out wrong. All of that anti-Chinese stuff is just wrong. So this is where it gets interesting. GWM, LDV, they scored better, not just because of how they handle a crash, but because of what they do to avoid one in the first place. Better brakes, that sort of stuff. ANCAP's testing in 2025 puts a lot more emphasis on the electronic systems, the active safety systems, ADAS, that sort of thing, and junction assist, or have less good cyclist detection. So when you're going to open a door or something like that, ANCAP now test those systems with moving dummy targets to simulate real-world scenarios. And so the fact that some cars didn't do so well and some variants did has given the cars basically a crapper rating. So for example, Kia did lose points in the pedestrian safety score because the bonnet didn't absorb an impact very well, or not well enough to protect a child's head in a simulated collision. That alone cost it several percentage points. Like I say, you can go buy this and then legally in this country stick a massive 150 kilo piece of metal in the front so that you can plow through like a train on Aussie roads to hit kangaroos. I kind of understand that it is a bit of a risky game driving at night, or even in the twilight hours. If you're going to hit a kangaroo, it's going to be quite bad. But Europe, we don't do that sort of thing. It's very much about the people on the road. They are the important thing. They need to be protected somewhat, and so if they get hit, you can't just go crushing people's bones. LDV's T60 Max, GWM's Canon, on the other hand, nailed that part of the test. And while those brands were once mocked for their build quality or safety, and spot welds and paint and galvanization and stuff like that, they've basically just been really improving their stuff in the background. Not that they were that bad anyway, to the point where they now formally outperform some established legacy brands in crash safety. So let's talk about why this actually matters, because some people will say, it's just 1 star, who really cares? But statistically, there are a lot of people that just will only buy it if it's a 5-star car. A significant amount of those people, from the data shows this, when someone has a kid, they are much more likely to insist on 5 stars. But before having a kid, or when the kid's older, seemingly people don't seem to care, actually. That's how I interpret the numbers. So here's the thing. The star does matter for fleet buyers and governments and things like that because of insurance as well. Tradies looking at long-term reliability and safety, they also, weirdly, they do insist upon having 5-star ratings. So who knows? Everyone has their opinion, but nobody can really state it doesn't matter to have 4 stars. You can't really say that, for everybody. Plenty of big fleet operators will only buy 5-star vehicles. It's literally written into their procurement policies. So Kia is missing out on that top rating. That really could cost them hundreds or even thousands of vehicle sales. And considering that the Tasman was supposed to be their big move into the Ute market in Australia, and they paid a lot of money to alter the cars and really just finesse that product for this country, it's not the launch they really wanted, not the headline anyway. So this is also a perception shift, I think, because for years Chinese Utes were seen as a bit cheap, a bit cheerful, a bit risky, a bit weird, but that's just not the case anymore. The GWM Canon scored 86% for adult occupant protection. That's higher than the Tasman. It also got 87% for child protection and 81% for vulnerable road users. So it's not just scoring better, it's also doing better by a very decent margin. And it's worth mentioning, all these scores are public on the ANCAP website, so you can go verify all this yourself. This isn't a marketing spin, it's raw published crash test data. Chinese Utes, they are genuinely legit. They're super good. And I think everyone thought when the Shark was going to come, it was going to be a bit naff, maybe. They're just not. If you go and drive one, go and sit in one, and I don't even want a Ute, to be honest with you, but even I thought this is really nice. I could totally see this being on my driveway, honestly. But I'm more of a small car person, little nimble car sort of person. That's just what I'm used to. But or a long car. At least when it comes to safety, the data says that they have caught up if they were behind in the first place, really, which they were statistically behind a little bit. The LDV T60 and the GWM Canon both now meet all the 2023, 24, 25 ANCAP criteria. That includes the updated requirements for post-crash rescue info, battery isolation protocols, AEB performance under low visibility. And Kia, they're nearly there, but just not quite. They're definitely, 10% less than the other brands. So I don't think this means that the Tasman is unsafe. Not at all. It's still, I think it's very well built. It'll be a lovely car to be in. And but in 2025, ANCAP expects more if it's going to give it a 5-star rating. So more assist systems. It's all about the computer, the technology, and if they can do that, they can give it a 5-star rating. Basically, it's got to be more consistent above the board. 5% more or something like that will probably put it into the 5-star rating. So if you're tossing up between a new work Ute this year and you've been choosing between a Tasman, GWM Canon, BYD Ute, you might just pause for a second and rethink your assumptions, actually, because the Chinese Ute might not just be cheaper anymore, but it also might be safer and a more reliable experience. Obviously, BYD really smashing it in terms of reliability, like excelling to Toyota standard, really, really great, which is brilliant. In Brazil, multiple people having done 200, 220 to 50,000 kilometers with zero issues at all. So yeah, ANCAP just gave a 4-star rating to Kia's brand new beautiful Ute, while LDV and GWM walked away with 5 stars. That's a huge change from where things were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Please do take a minute to just say what you think in the comments. Would you still buy a Kia Tasman knowing it didn't get 5 stars? How important is it to you? And has your opinion of Chinese cars or vehicles changed in the last 5 years? Yes or no? Really curious to know what people are thinking about this. So much to unpack, really. I read all the comments. I reply to most of them, not all of them. There's just too many sometimes, but most of them anyway. Put your thoughts below. Thank you for watching again. I really appreciate that. I'm Ben Alexxander. See you in the next video.